All right. Hey, everyone. It's Todd again. My second installment about Hyperacusis Part 2 and how I've found my way through this or in the middle of it currently finding my way through. Um, at first, I wasn't going to post another video about this, but been some new events, and the more that I research online and look at studies and see other people's really tragic posts about their experiences, I think I have something to add to this discussion. As I said, if you haven't watched my part one video, go check it out. And as I said in there, just a brief background. Um, I come at this from maybe a different point of view than, or a different place than some other people. I've been a nurse, an RN for 20 plus years, and all different kinds of experiences from orthopedics, wound care, being a float nurse throughout a hospital, working on all the floors, all kinds of different things. I was a musician and have been a musician my entire adult life, drummer and singer. Had my own band for 7 years and played in every kind of situation imaginable. I grew up on a farm. It just goes on and on. I raced motorcycles as a young kid, young man. So I've had my entire lifetime of exposure to loud noises. I've always worn hearing protection since I've been an adult. In all the bands and all the situations where I played, used in-ear monitors. I've always been very careful. I had an event at a car shop that I was working in part-time on July 7th, so 6 weeks ago, something like that. And as I look back, a few things occurred to me that hadn't occurred to me prior to this. July 4th, I was exposed to a lot of loud noises. Went to a friend's house to watch fireworks, and they happened to be literally just almost under where the fireworks were being lit off over a lake. So, really loud concussion sounds. And then 3 days later, had an event where I was cutting a bolt off of some suspension using very, very loud air cutters and air chisels and wearing ear protection for most of it. There was a couple of very brief periods where I didn't have it on, but super high pitched sound, very, very high pitched. And following that, went through all the stages of what people know to be hyperacusis. Um, my tinnitus that I've always had since I was a young kid grew much louder and more intense in a very weird way. Didn't blend in. It's kind of, I describe it as like right now with my tinnitus, it's blending in pretty well. I notice it, but I don't notice it directly all the time. After this event, extremely loud, and kind of everything's been kind of, as it's gone on, left focused. So anyway, you can listen to the beginning part if you're interested in it in my first video. Since my first video, I was feeling pretty positive. I was feeling pretty good, and then did what I do. I'm a person who likes to do things, get things done. I have a lot of projects I'm working on all the time. I went back to the automotive shop. I've actually since quit. I decided I needed to leave, which was a really hard decision because I really enjoy, I really enjoy that kind of work. I just needed to do a few things, which was some drilling of some holes in something I was doing, cutting of a little bit of metal. I was really careful. Earplugs, earmuffs. I came out of that situation that day um, with a much more left-sided focus, and I was so incredibly pissed at myself, thinking, why was I even there? And then trying to recreate what's going on. It was like really loud tinnitus on my left side, a hollow, full sound on my left side, more pain, um, a feeling of my eustachian tube. Eustachian tube is when you pop your ears, that equalizes the pressure between your inner and outer environments in your, from your ear to the outer environment. That when I would swallow, that would be making a lot more noise, and that somehow that was related to this kind of hollow sound I was feeling. That got really, really bad, and along with it, the dissonant sound that I was hearing, where it sounded like I started to become more aware. In some ways, even the dark side of this helped me, and this is one of the things I want to encourage people who are really in dark times about this. Start to become just take notes if you have to. Start to become your own therapist, because the community at large out there is just not as aware as we can be about our own problem, and we might be the only ones who can solve this. That's why I'm continuing to do this. So what did I notice? I noticed that hollow feeling was left-sided. I noticed that this dissonant sound, all of a sudden it became more clear to me that if I would put my hand up to my left ear, that the vocal thing that I was having when I would talk to somebody and it would sound tinny and AM radio like. The joke in my head is it became what chewing on tinfoil sounds or feels like. That's what it sounded like. Um, Extremely, annoying does not do it justice. I'm sure if anybody's watching this and understands what I'm talking about or has a similar sort of frequency dissonance going on, there aren't any good ways to describe how demoralizing and difficult it is, because you can't stop it from coming in and it's always there. So it becomes a very, very fatiguing issue. So you're not alone. I understand. In trying to just continue this road of like, how do I deal with this? It started to become apparent that maybe, and this is something you can investigate in your own issues, maybe the preliminary hearing loss that I must have taken on that day, or it just pushed my threshold of hearing loss to a point where I was really noticing it, right? And then all of the hypersensitivity that came with it, the pain, everything. What I started to notice was if I would do this, it would equal out, and the dissonant frequency thing, when I was, especially when I was speaking to other people for whatever reason, listening and speaking in an outside environment really got this sound activated. It wasn't as bad. So in some ways, again, in being our own best therapist about this started to, you start to clarify and really funnel down what is going on with you. So with me, what I realized was, okay, I've got a little more hearing loss going on in this left ear when I do this. That hollow sound goes away because I'm actually bringing in more of the high-end sound. It makes sense because that's where my hearing loss is. So as I bring in more high-end sound, it would equalize out my ears. And so that gave me a little hope and a little sadness, because it made me realize, okay, probably the solution to this is going to be hearing aids, which, I think that if you didn't start out early with a hearing loss and have to deal with sort of the obvious issue that, okay, it's hearing aid time, and that was kind of a difficult thing for me to realize, because I'm as vain as anybody. I don't want to admit to myself that that's where I'm at, but pretty obvious when you look at it. So the hollow sound would go away, the dissonance would get a little better. I was still having some of the frequency things just overall, right? These things are very nuanced, and that's why I'm making these videos, so that you can start to, it helps you in your quest to figure this out, because the more specific you can be to yourself about what's going on, and the more you can focus in on is it this problem? Is it a hearing? Is it a frequency problem that I'm not hearing? Is it just a hypersensitivity problem that I have to deal with? Is it a little bit of everything? Okay, so after this second event, which was really not loud sounds, it was more, I think, me wearing earplugs all day, which triggered something going on with my eustachian tube, and I was having more pain on my left side. One thing that I started realizing really helps in this whole healing process sounds really weird, because I gave up on ibuprofen and things like that. It's just, I didn't want to take that all the time, and it really wasn't doing anything. One thing that I started doing was thicker fruit juices. If you hypercool them, get them just to the point where they're still liquid, but they're almost frozen. Thicker fruit juices, when you drink them, really stay, right where you swallow, where your eustachian tube is, where all of these hyperactive muscles that are moving everything in your middle and inner ear, middle ear mostly, but all these nerves, they're right there where you swallow, and your TMJ joint can get activated. Cooling those down is a legitimate help. So thicker fruit juices that I was drinking, and then I would hold them there as long as I could before I would swallow, really, really helped to relieve some of this pain, the acute sense of pain in this. And then being really noticing of what's going on internally with you, I would notice that, okay, when I cooled everything down and did this for a while, and I would swallow, I wasn't getting this extra clicking and noise inside. Well, that's good. That's what we want. I changed something. That's the whole point of being your own best doctor here. Do things that change something, but notice, you can change for the worse and for the better, but it's still a positive thing in the bigger picture, because now we know this little thing makes this worse, this little thing makes this better, meaning we can move the arrow, we can change the dial on this. So that helped. And then I had the main reason I'm making this video. Then I had an event that I didn't expect what was going to happen. A friend of mine is moving away, and I wanted to go hang out with them. Drove to his place, and we went out for dinner. I'd been having an okay day with everything, so I wasn't really expecting my own reaction. Went into a restaurant. It was incredibly loud. Now, I'd done this before and had an okay experience, and let me give you the overall idea that I still believe is correct. And every time I read it online about these terrible stories that people have been through, I believe even more firmly that this is the way to help hyperacusis and the sensitivity problem. That we have to always be thinking of, where would our normal hearing comfort level be at if we're in normal hearing comfort level environments? And normal means pretty wide range, right? It means a loud restaurant. It means lots of things. Things where normal exposure after an hour or 2 hours is not going to cause any hearing loss, right? We definitely want to protect against that. But I'm talking about the normal situations. that more exposure to those helps this neurologic brain component of this. So I got a big lesson in this the other night. It was when I was in the restaurant with my friend, I came incredibly close to having a panic attack. I was so freaked out by how loud it was, and just everything, silverware, everything. It was it was a big full place. I breathed through it. I'm a meditator. I meditate every day. I cannot stress what a good thing I think that is during times like these. I'm going to do another video on it. I tried to relax, tried to stay in the moment, tried to just get through it, and I did, kind of just barely. It was very loud. But one thing I noticed, and I want to bring it to your attention so that you can possibly know it and see it too, is during the course of this, where everything seemed hypersensitive, everything when I was talking, I was getting my frequency problem, the hypersensitivity, I just wanted to put my hands over my ears. There was a point in there where something normalized just a little bit, where all of a sudden I was realizing, okay, it's loud, and I'm experiencing it as loud, but for just brief moments at a time, I was experiencing that I'm not feeling the need to protect my hearing for just brief periods of time. It's feeling a little normal, and my frequency issue with somebody talking to me and me talking back was feeling a little more normal. Again, I think these are the biggest things to show us that we can normalize our own situation. It's really easy to just go down the hole of despair. But if we pay close attention to the things that we should be paying close attention to, we shouldn't be paying close attention to, as we self-monitor and get in situations where we're uncomfortable, we can just cause a full-blown panic attack. So we want to try and bring ourselves out of that, bring ourselves back to a place where we can pay attention to the things we need to, but not cause ourselves undue stress. Easier said than done, I know, but I'm just trying to lay it out there in its simplest form. So while I was there, I realized, okay, something's happening, and it's very strange because I'm not doing anything different. I'm not wearing earplugs. I'm not doing anything different. We went back to his place, hung out. He had some music playing. And by the time I left his house, now we're talking this whole event several hours later, I thought, I'm actually, something feels a little better and a little different. My hypersensitivity isn't quite so crazy. Frequency thing isn't quite so crazy. Although my left ear was really lit up. I mean, it was like a lot of pain. So here's what I think was going on. And I could almost feel it when I paid really close attention. All of these hyperactive muscles, these contractions from everything I spoke about in my first video about all these small muscle groups and nerve groups and that control your tympanic membrane, that just move everything, that start to get hypersensitive, and they can contract and get spasm-like. I believe that during this event, I'd worked them really hard. I believe that's what you want to do. You're not causing damage to your hearing. I want to stress that. I wasn't in a situation where I was going to cause damage to my hearing. It feels that way because we're paying attention to it. It feels that way because we're getting all these inputs that are saying you're in too loud of an environment. But really what it is our hypersensitivity telling us that, and then we're paying attention to that, and that's what takes us out of these environments and makes us overprotect. So The following day, I felt markedly different. I could tell that I was still having sensitivity, but it was different. I had done what I spoke about earlier in this video, drinking the thickened fruit juices, the thick fruit juices. They're everywhere these days in different drinks, and really cooled down this left side. I've been getting good sleep, trying to sleep in a little longer than usual just to rest things. And I started to notice that there were a combination of things that were different. Sensitivity didn't seem quite so great, which is really good. I feel like I keep raising my threshold of comfort and lowering my threshold of sensitivity to everything. That's what we want to be doing. Working those muscles out, in some ways, good because I believe it must be doing the same thing neurologically. So we're physically working out all of these things in our inner ear. We're also neurologically sending signals that are saying to our brain, hopefully, some mechanism of, this is a normal situation. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to take in the loud restaurant. I'm going to go to my friend's house, listen to music. Not loud, but medium level, moderate level. And we're going to take this in, and our brain can start to rewire around, this is a normal setting. Instead of, I'm going to leave that situation, I'm going to put earplugs in, I'm going to quiet everything down, and our brain says, oh, okay, the really quiet is the normal, and we don't want to go back to that. So we want to change that. We want to turn it around because it got turned around. And I cannot stress how incredibly stressed out I was during this. I mean, it was really hard to do. This wasn't easy. Back to the following day, I felt pretty damn good. Felt okay. I could smile in a long time since I was able to smile. I had a couple conversations with people that felt a little better. The weird eustachian tube thing that I believe, is all part of that musculature, all part of that mechanism, that complicated mechanism, wasn't so bad. Today it's actually a little worse. It's a little clicky, and I'm getting the weird, like, I want to do this a little bit and be like, yeah, okay. So what can you glean from this? My next installment, for all I know, I'm seeing an ENT on Wednesday again, and another audiologist. I may have already ordered earplugs, hearing aids, or which is all part of this, right? The irony is, I'm not saying earplugs. I'm not saying we're going to close it out. I'm saying I want to raise up, especially on my left side, if I can raise up the frequency or the volume level, or both, to equal out this, and that makes more sense, then maybe I also help correct what the normal level is that my brain neurologically is seeing, and that my muscles and all these little bones and things in my middle ear are experiencing, and it becomes more normal. It's like a headlight, right? If we burn out a headlight, we got this side that we're looking at, or whatever it is, and once you even that back out, everything, it's not so fatiguing. It's not so hard to understand. It brings equalized input in. So we're not shutting out. We're bringing more in the normal, trying to normalize. So I'm going to conclude it. I don't know where I'll be on my next installment, but I want to. There's so many horror stories out there, and so many things where I think people just went down the hole of, I got to close the world off now. And when you close the world off and you are inside your head, it's only natural that you're going to focus on all these things that I'm talking about, and you're going to hyper focus on them, and then you never leave them. You never get outside of this inner space, and you close off the rest of the world. And to me, that's a recipe for disaster. And we don't want disaster. We want even if it's a slow recipe, we want a slow recipe for, okay, I realized that thing made this worse. I realized that makes it a little better. I realized, okay, I'm actually not hearing enough here. And when I, do little things and try to figure it out, because no doctor these days is going to spend the time that you probably need on this. Or very, very, very few doctors, I believe, are aware enough about this and are going to spend the time. So you need to come in armed with information, and maybe we don't need doctors to solve this ultimately. Maybe we can come up with a plan ourselves to solve this. Exposure, silly things, right? I mean, what if the key to this is what I thought in my first video, and I still am believing? Decrease the inflammation, increase our exposure to normal. Maybe we need hearing aids. Maybe we have to equalize things sonically and frequency-wise so that creates the next step in a normal environment. Expose yourself to the outside world. Get out of your head. Don't stop doing the things that you love doing. It's a multifold thing. It keeps you from going down the depression wonderland or hellland. It keeps you in touch with people who care about you. It gives you a perspective where even if for 5 minutes of that whole event or time that you're doing it, you weren't thinking about this damn thing going on, it shows you that you can actually not have to go down that land of thinking about it. I'll discuss more about it next time. I want to do a whole video on meditation and the value that I think it adds to this, but I want to just say a quick thing about it before I go, that I've meditated daily for years. I use the Waking Up app. I think it's one of the best. It's got incredible amounts of information on there. And the whole idea, very simply stated, is to have a practice of mindfulness that makes you realize the power of your thoughts, and how if you get lost in thinking, and we are in a situation, if you're watching this, you are in a situation where all you have to do is think, how much time did I spend today thinking about this? In my head, thinking, this is never going to get better. I can't stand this anymore. I don't know what to do here. What do I do? And we all know that can be a trip literally to suicide. So every day, taking a moment, meditating, where you can try to become more aware of these thoughts coming in, that you can follow down these deep dark holes that you don't have to follow, that the thoughts can come in and the thoughts will dissipate, and you can stay right here in the present. Any time spent on that is enormously positive right now at this time especially. So I'm going to end it there. Stay with your program, figure your program out, and empower yourself to notice the small micro things that make things better and worse, and then just keep on following the better path. And hopefully, by doing this, we can affect change in this horrible little thing we have going on, just enough so you can smile. If I can get to a place of smiling again, then surely you can. And I hope I can help that. And I'll see you next time. And hang in there. You're not alone. And this can be solved. I genuinely, honestly believe that. Thanks. See you soon.